Born in Stevenson, Cat Island in 1939, he moved to Nassau at an early age. And after finishing high school, he taught for a while, then joined the Royal Bahamas Police Force, passing out as the best recruit. He was soon appointed Assistant Out Island Commissioner and went on up the ranks to Director of Local Government, Chief Out Island Commissioner. He was also afforded the opportunity to study public administration. He was one of the first to become Family Island Local Government Administrator, where he served on the island of Eleuthera. After retirement, he went to Buckingham Law School to study law at 64 years of age. He just may be one of the oldest candidates to be called to the Bahamas Bar. Once again, I tried to get that Cat Island flour cake recipe. Let's see if I get it this time. On this episode of Bahamian Heritage Series, Attorney at Law, Mr. Newton Raymond McDonald.
My full name is Newton Raymond McDonald. My date of birth is the 6th of August, 1939, and my place of birth is Stevenson, Cat Island.
Okay, what were your parents' names?
My father, deceased, Joseph Ramon McDonald. My mother, she got an old name, Proxana Brown. Proxana Brown McDonald.
Okay, where were your parents from? Were they also from?
I'm a Cat Island all around. My mother was from Stevenson, Cat Island, and my father from Nassau, Cat Island.
Okay, would you happen to know anything about your grandparents? Were they alive?
Yes, my maternal grandfather was Joseph Brown of Stevenson, Cat Island. I remember him very well. He was an outstanding man in Stevenson. He had a shop, he had a boat, and he was well known. Okay. My grandfather was Bridge Raymond McDonald from Nassau. That's my father's father. I remember him as well.
So did all of them live on Cat Island at the time?
All of them live on.
Family, everybody.
Everybody lived on Cat Island. As a matter of fact, when I was born, around that time, Cat Island was very populated. It had a lot of white people and the loyalists who moved to Cat Island, but after the both people and the family left, and they left the slaves there, and gradually, as New Providence, United States, and Freeport developed, the residents of Cat Island moved away. Mm-hmm. Cat Island one time had over 5,000 people. Okay. Now it's less than 2,000.
Wow, and you know that is the exact same story for all of the family islands?
That's right, yeah. That's right.
Just moved out.
That's right.
After a while.
Yeah,
they were much more populated.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm. As far as McDonald is concerned, you'll find some in Eleuthera, you'll find some in Andros, find some in Dimini, and Cat Island, of course. Yeah. McDonald originally from Nassau, Cat Island, and Eleuthera.
Okay.
The one who, there be few Eleuthera now, because the old man who went to Eleuthera, Eddie McDonald, matter of fact, he lived very long. He, I think he was over 100 when he died in Gregorytown, Eleuthera. And then, of course, some went to Andros, North Andros, that's Nicholstown, and then Standing Creek. Mm-hmm. And then they had a McDonald family in Dimini, Harmon McDonald. Yeah.
Okay. What type of work did your parents do?
Well, my grandparents, they were all farmers and fishermen. That was their mainstay, farming and fishing.
Do you remember the house that you grew up in?
Yes. When I was a youngster, I would say a toddler, I grew up in my grandfather's and my aunt's house in Stevenson. And when I was about 5 years of age, I relocated to Nassau at my father's homestead. And I grew up basically in Nassau until I was 13 years of age. At the age of 13, my family then relocated to Nassau, where I attended high school in Nassau, and we never went back.
Okay, interesting.
We never went back, yeah.
So what did the house in Cat Island look like? Can you
Well,
describe it?
basically the houses in Cat Island were mainly stone mason, but say roughly 2 bedrooms. And then there was outside kitchen where all the cooking and then sometimes some places they had barn where they store their grain So basically the average household was a house, a kitchen, and a barn.
Okay. So talking about an outside kitchen and talking about Cat Island, do you have the recipe for that Cat Island flour cake? Maybe I could get it from you because nobody would give it to me.
Well, to tell the truth, I do not have the recipe.
Okay.
But I like Cat Island. Very few people make the cake. There's one Cat Islander who lives in Nassau that I know very well, but he's not in Nassau now. Paul King.
Okay.
He makes him a flour cake, but basically it's like Johnny cake. You flour, you sugar, and so on like that. Sometimes nutmeg, and it's better baked in rock oven. You could bake it in this here, but traditionally it was baked in a rock oven, and that was it was good.
So what were some of the other type foods that you ate as a child? Do you remember?
Well, as a child, you ate what was available: peas and grits, fish. You had your chicken, which grew grew around the yard, the chicken, and then you had your creatures like your goat, your sheep, and your pig, and so on like that, you know. And then you made use of the fauna in the crabs and conch and all like that. Land crab that I'm speaking about, you know. Yeah.
Did you have plumbing and electricity back then?
No. There was no plumbing, no electricity. You had your outside toilet, and then we didn't have no outside toilet to use the bush toilet.
I assume you had siblings?
Yes, I have. My family was not a big family. I had my oldest sister. I didn't know very much about her, but she was she died. She died on the boat, on the sloop boat coming from Nassau to Cat Island. She was not doing well, and my information was that the doctor told my mother not to travel with her. But then, of course, she disobeyed the doctor's orders, and it was very calm. And when they reached Little Island, which is now Half Moon Key, she was dead, so they took her ashore and buried her there. So she's buried in Little Island. Then I have my other sister.
What was her name?
Her name was Lula Jane.
Okay.
Lula Jane.
So about how old was she at the time?
Well, she would have been about 2 years of age or so. I don't know, honestly, I don't know.
Right.
Then my other sister was Alberta, and then the other one was Elmore. They're both deceased. So I'm the only one in the family now.
Okay, so originally there were 4 children.
Originally there were 4 children, but
3 were left alive, and now you're the only one.
that's right.
Okay, interesting. All right. So you said that you all had come here when you were pretty young, right?
Yeah, I came here. My father, as I said, was a farmer. In those days, the cash crop was tomatoes. And my father farmed tomatoes and sold tomatoes and bought a lot in the Coconut Grove. And then he went on a contract. And on return from contract, he built a little house in the Grove here. And that's in 1953. So when that house was built, he decided to move his family from Cat Island into Nassau. That's where we settled and resettled, and we grew up. As a matter of fact, we all grew up in the Grove, 2nd Street.
2nd Street, the Grove. Wow, okay.
When I came here, I went to Western Senior School up on the hill there, under the headmastership of P.G. Glover. I went there to school, Western Senior, and then as I advanced and passed my BJC at Western Senior, I went to Oaksfield School. When I say Oaksfield School, they created a technical school. They created a school in Oaksfield for students doing the Cambridge Senior, and they were Luther McDonald. He was a principal, and we had students from all over the Bahamas that came to that school to do the Cambridge Senior, and also it was a sort of training ground for teachers.
Right.
So we went there after we finished with there. We went to training college, teachers college, and some went to government. Some continued on to government high school. So basically, this school was an extension of government high school.
Okay, and that was the government high school that was in the area where across the street.
Up in the British Colonialism.
That was the original government.
That's the original government high school.
Okay,
Yeah.
Regarding where you lived in the Grove, is that house still there?
The house is still there. Unfortunately, I wasn't wise, but after my sister got married, she went away. She went her way, and my other sister, she went to the States to live. So, and I went away. So the house was being sort of vandalized. So we sold it.
Okay. So where did you fall in those children? Were you first, second, third?
I was the oldest one, always. The oldest one, and her mother was the second one, and then the last one was Elmore. She lived in the States, and she died over there.
Right.
Yeah.
What was it like living in the Grove back in those days?
It was like living on an island. There was no tar road. There was white road in the beginning, and it was like they call it behind God back, because there was hardly anything in the Grove. There was no light. There was no water. We had to go for water to Blue Hill with a bucket. There was no water.
There was not even the pumps back then?
There was some, gradually, there was a pump in selected areas. Yeah.
Okay. It's a lot different now, isn't it?
Oh, a lot different now, yeah.
Did people get along? Did you all deal with the neighbors?
Oh yes. We knew just about everybody on your street, and people beyond, and it was like a melting pot for the family islanders. We had Tex Islanders in the Grove there. We had Exumians, Androsians, Long Islanders, all of them right in the Grove there. So we got to know one another and live peacefully.
Did you have a lot of migrants from outside of the Bahamas at that time?
No, they basically family islanders now. Tex Islanders were like migrants, but they were, as you know, they were like Bahamians.
Right.
Yeah.
So where did you go to church? Did you go to church?
Now my father was a strict Seventh-day Adventist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was a strict Seventh-day Adventist, and we all had to go with him. We went to Grandstone Seventh-day Adventist Church. Grandstone Seventh-day Adventist Church. When I used to walk out from the Grove every Saturday morning. He saw her that we go there. Pastor Macmillan was the pastor at that church there. His son Leslie Macmillan is now a pastor, and then he had a son who was a dentist, a politician. What his name is? Anyway, yeah, but
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting. So, what happened after high school? You started to tell me.
Yeah, when I was sort of brilliant. But it could have been better if I used to be more attentive to my lesson. But at BJC, Cambridge Senior, I always passed with the face sitting. They wanted my parents wanted me to teach. Even in the Southern Adventist school, they wanted me to teach, but I wasn't into that. So I was captured by the policeman in uniform. So I joined the police force. Okay. I joined the police force at the age of 19, and passed out as the best recruit.
Wow.
Best recruit. So I joined the police force, but I realized well, maybe I should move higher. So I taught for a couple of months before I joined the police force, and after reaching the rank of sergeant in the police force, I was attracted to Rhode Island, so I became an Rhode Island. I was seconded to the then Ministry of Rhode Island Affairs. There I was appointed an assistant Rhode Island commissioner.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
Which island?
Well, when you appointed an assistant commissioner, you move from island to island.
Oh, okay.
Now my first posting was in Marshall, Babaco, where I did some understudy with then Senior Commissioner Douglas Jones. And from there my first posting was Sandy Point, Abaco. Then I went on to Inagua. And then from there, I had other postings in Governor's Harbor, Meguana,
Wow, you was all
Meguana, Crooked Island, Long Island, Bimini, and Freeport, 8 Mile Rock.
So when you would do that, how long would you stay in each area?
That is determined by the government,
Okay.
and that's not stable because
So you were.
sometimes the people don't want you there after certain times, and sometimes there's problem in some areas. So even though you're happy there, they send you to fill a vacancy somewhere else. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. What was the political climate back then? I guess back in those days, that was before majority rule, right?
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, that is when I was teaching and so on like that, the UBP, the United Baymen Party, was the party of the day. And Penland, Whitfield, Eddie Hanna, and a couple of those, they were advocating for a change. And in 1962, and they were also advocating for women to vote. So in 1962, we really thought that the PLP would win the general election because they were very popular, and women were given the vote for the first time. But the UVP won that election. That was a sad time. Yeah, it was a sad time. That's 62. But the next general election, the PLP won. Historically, 18 seats for the PLP, 18 seats for the UBP. And Randolph Fox, who's a Laborite, he joined the PLP. And A.R. Brennan, the Honorable A.R. Brennan, they offered him speakership. So he joined, which gave the PLP the majority. They formed the government in 1967. In 1968, Randolph Fox was a renegade. When I say renegade, he had his own ideas, and the PLP had difficulty with him. So in 1968, one of the PLP members of Parliament, Uriah McPhee, he died. By that time, the PLP had just started the government and was very popular. And the Prime Minister was wise enough to call a general election. And in that general election, the PLP got a convincing majority. And they governed for about 6 times.
Right.
6 times, yeah.
Interesting. So you lived through both sides prior to...
I lived through the UBP reign.
Right.
I lived through the PLP reign. I lived through the FNM reign.
Yes. When you lived through the UBP reign, were there instances of prejudice or having to deal with?
There was. I didn't experience much of it, but then during the UBP time, as a black man, you couldn't go to the Savoy Theater, and then the banks and all like that were filled with white people. So that of course that stopped now.
So what about your career path after that? You continued. You said you were.
Well, I must say my career path was not a steady one. I always looking on the other side, looking up and to move on. So I started out as a teacher. I went on to become a policeman. I went on to become a Rhode Island commissioner.
Yes.
And I was promoted actually the director of local government, which is the chief Rhode Island commissioner.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I applied for and got an in-service award to study public administration in England. So I went to Manchester, England, where I studied public administration. And when I returned, I went to the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Local Government in Nassau. And then I went back to Rhode Island as an administrator when the government decided to introduce local government. I was one of the first to be Rhode Island local government administrator. So I was the administrator for the whole of Lutra. And then afterward I came back into Nassau. And by that time I had reached the retirement age. So I retired at that time the retirement age was 60. I felt like I still had so much to offer. So I decided I'll study on my own. I went to England to Buckingham Law School, where I studied law.
Wow.
I studied law, and I came back and
At 60 years old.
When I went to study law, I was 64.
There's hope for me.
I was 64.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was the oldest. As a matter of fact, I may be the oldest candidate to be called to the Bahamas Bar, because when I came back and was called to the Bahamas Bar, all the other candidates were younger than I was.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you practiced law after that?
Yes, I practiced law after that, but I realized my limitations. When I say my limitations, law is a lot of work and studies and reading cases and all like that. So I decided to restrict myself in my legal way and away from home.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I do now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. So what about marriage and family? When did that happen?
Yeah, I got married very early. I got married very early at the age of 23, which is considered early. Of course, that's not that early, but so after marrying to my first wife,
Did you have children?
yeah, we have six children. Six children. One of them died, so that's leave five.
What were their names?
Well, the oldest one is Reno Ricardo. The second was Gary McDonald. Well, Reno is he's sort of contractor. He's here in Nassau. And the second was Gary McDonald. He went on. He now lives in Atlanta, Georgia. But he is an engineer, mechanical engineer. He started out on the Bahamas Defense Force, and he went to the States to stay there. Then the third one was Sloan McDonald. Now he was doing well, but he died. He was a sort of refrigeration technician. And then the last one was chemia. Then I had two girls. As a matter of fact, the first four children were boys, and then the other two, the last two were girls.
Okay.
Yeah. The older girl, Nicola, she's a Russell. She's married to Sarah Russell, and the other girl is Nicola Russell is she works to one of the banks, First Caribbean Bank, and the other one, and the last girl, she's Chandela Major. She's a postal clerk. She's a postal clerk. And then my second wife, well, of course my first wife is deceased. My second wife, Stephanie, she's deceased as well. We had three children. One of them died, the boy, and two girls. Now the older girl, she works at First Caribbean Bank. She just got married on the weekend. But the last girl, she works in the area of trust. As a matter of fact, she's just going to Bermuda on appointment. She's supposed to start tomorrow.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So you had a total of how many children?
I got to give you the whole shebang. I have before my marriage, I had twin boys.
Okay.
Keith and Brian. They're on. As a matter of fact, both of them have joined the police force, but they retire now. One retires as an assistant superintendent, and the other retires as a sergeant. Then I had him as a commissioner. I had a daughter in Agua. She works at Morton. Then I have a daughter in Mayagona, but she lives in Nassau. She lives in Nassau. I have one in Honduras.
Attorney McDonald acknowledged additional children, all of whom he cherishes and loves.
But she lives in Freeport.
I assume you have a lot of grandchildren as well.
Oh, numerous. Yeah.
Probably great grand by now.
Great. Oh, yeah. I think I have a great grand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. When you go think about your life history and your story and the things that you accomplished and achieved, and now you're living in today's world where things are so different, what advice do you have for Bahamians or young people now coming up based on your experiences?
Well, the very city of Bahamas now is everybody's fucking Nassau or Grand Bahama. The economy of Grand Bahama cannot sustain the population so the Grand Bahama is it's not doing very well at the moment. When I first came in Nassau, there was about 53,000. The old people were now over 200,000. You were able to get a lot, 50,000 cheap, less than that. So it's difficult to get. It's difficult for the young people now to get a home, and it's difficult for them to qualify for loan because what you need to, you see, because these real estate people and foreigners, the houses is priced beyond the capability, beyond the ability. Skyrocket, you know what I mean? Yeah. So what I would advise the young people to do now is to, from their first paycheck, start saving. Save your money. Try and get a steady job. Try and go into something that is gonna continuous. Not just get a job today and then the job closes on. Try and get a profession. And the next thing is try to restrict yourself to small families because to raise children is expensive.
That's some excellent advice, and you are certainly up with the times.
I should have done this in the beginning, but young people, they don't seem to gravitate toward the church. They need to remember that God is, keep God first in your life.
Hard work, determination, dedication, and ambition are just a few words that can be used to describe this giant of a man with humble beginnings from Cat Island who achieved so much. At 83 years old, he is still making a contribution to our country and is a lay reader at St. Anne's Anglican Church. On this episode of Bahamian Heritage Series, we salute Mr. Newton Raymond McDonald.